Hey, it's John Carlos, and I'm here once again, as always, with
Eddie!
that's Eddie. um, random. We will be, and we already have been talking about horror movies that generally I feel like you and I are familiar with, that we've heard of, that we've already seen, or at least that we know exist. Maybe we got around to it for the first time or something. But we're going to talk about City of the Dead, which up until recently, neither one of us had ever seen before, right?
This is true.
It's true. I'll tell you what happened. On my Instagrams, I'm doing double features of horror movies, things to watch for Halloween season. And I was having the hardest time trying to find something to pair The Wicker Man with. And it came close to being paired with Stage Fright. Was it Stage Fright? Or Repo? Like, Wicker Man's kind of musical, and Stage Fright, and Repo is a musical. Anyway, I got bored one night and looked up movies that are like Wicker Man. And there's an IndieWire article called 5 Films of Horror and Madness to Watch If You Love The Wicker Man. And the 5th placing one, because they had other ones that ranked a little higher, but there was a movie called City of the Dead with Christopher Lee on there. And I went, well, that sounds interesting. Found out it's on Tubi, which you and I, as far as I understand, we're both kind of living for Tubi right now.
TubiTV.com.
Yeah, Tubi. I have the app at home on my device that I watch things on. And if anyone out there doesn't know, it's a free app. You can watch movies for free, but they throw in ads, which generally speaking, I am really against. But like, if I'm not watching The Godfather on this, and I'm not watching like Wings of Desire, I'm watching fucking, Bloody Birthday and The Mutilator, and there's so much
Maniac and
there's so much schlock on there, and I friggin' love it. Anyway, so I looked it up. I watched it once. I had a really strong reaction, and I had to hit you up and be like, Eddie, have you seen this? Please watch it. I'm just gonna say this up front. I loved it. I didn't know what to expect. It came out in 1960, and immediately within the first 2 minutes of watching the movie, because it opens in this old, I think, New England town in like the late 1692, but the way that they're accusing this woman of being a witch, and they bring her out, and it's an upper angle on the citizens, and then Dutch angles, and then when it's time to take her to burn her, like there's these 2 like women in the foreground and the things in the background. They do like a rack focus, and I'm like, for some little ass movie that I never heard of, like, this director is making some good choices in an era where a lot of movies beyond more auteurs that we're used to, a lot of movies tend to be a little more flatly directed. And there are some really strong choices in this movie as far as composition, framing. It's, so within the first 2 minutes, I'm like, I already know I'm going to like this. But to anyone out there who before we get into spoilers, let me just say this. It's got the 60s flavor of music and dialogue and framing I like, but it's got witches. It's got sets with cobwebs and fog. It's got like a mystery. It's got Christopher Lee. It's an hour and 17 minutes, and it gives me like everything I need. It is an instant favorite. That's my experience before we get into it. What about you?
I agree. It was interesting because it's also got an element of time travel to it that actually reminds me of a lot of films from that era that I first learned about watching Mystery Science Theater 3000 make fun of. In fact, there's even a riff tracks on Tubi TV. Watch the movie first. The riff tracks is worth it, but watch the movie first without any kind of commentary or voices. Don't listen. Don't watch beyond a spoiler point. Like, we'll put an act break and people who have already seen the movie should proceed after that act break. But no, I was really surprised. I mean, as per usual, I had a few things that attracted my ear, technically, and some things just filmically that I admired about them. But the biggest thing was the interpersonal, was the acting, and there were a lot of things that I really keyed into with this movie. I'm always fascinated when actors of this particular kind of bygone era, which I'd say is largely comprised with cinema of the early and mid 20th century. It's kind of a treat when you see people do really good work, like work that holds up, that isn't entirely stylized. There's plenty of stylized acting in this as well if you want big theatrical brouhaha and whatnot, but there's also some really decent exchanges between people that just made me like them. So and it doesn't take a long time to get where it's going. Like, it's, how long is it?
An hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a rough set. They get you in there, you get what you paid for, even though with Tubi you didn't pay for anything. You just get maybe a couple commercial interruptions. Totally worth it. I'd say watch it now.
Yeah, I have yet to watch the riff tracks. I actually wanted to before we recorded this. I just didn't get around to it. Life got in the way. But I'm still gonna watch it. But there's so much about this movie that I don't consider "quote unquote" bad. I'd want to see it get riffed on. There's a few things. Primarily the fact that it's a British production, but they insist that it's an American set story, and all the actors are British, but not all of them can pull off an American accent. Primarily the two male leads, Nan's brother and Nan's guy friend.
Yeah. There's something interesting there. I mean, well, we're getting into it now, folks. So if you haven't seen it, go see it.
Spoiler territory.
Yeah. From here on out, like, go see it, come back, and then listen to us, and then comment all you want. It's free. Go for it. Those two, okay, this is where we get to, like, the acting style. We didn't start with these people, but when we get to them, it's Benisha Stevenson playing Nan Barlow. I fucking love that name. Every time she introduced herself as Nan Barlow, I was just like, it's so literary. I don't know. I feel like I'm reading it off of a page.
Barlow is last name. I felt bad that she was named Nan.
I liked it.
I
thought, ooh, Nan Barlow. Ooh. And I like the way she introduced herself. But when she was interacting...
Though, that's a good name, too.
That's a great name. I was like, why haven't I heard of you before? And they introduce her in this movie, even though she had done 7 films prior, apparently. That's what I got off IMDb.
Yeah, that happens from time to time.
Yeah, maybe not American films. I don't know. I haven't done that much research. But what I wrote down about Benisha Stevenson, because she is a big win for me with this movie. She's
a bright beacon. It's a great movie, but she's great.
Well, because what I love is when she's introduced, I wrote appropriately bland enough, like kind of cosmetically, when she's on screen with the other normies. Like when she's speaking, and I don't mean in performance, but she does meet them kind of like in a similar cadence. Like both male performers, her boyfriend Bill and her brother Dick, whenever she's talking to both of them, which we see her do when she's introduced right out on the heels of Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee, of course, makes... Well, we'll get into that. But okay, so she's with her, interacting with her brother and her boyfriend, respectively. And I just caught on to this cadence where they're just kind of sitting there talking to her like this, and she's sitting there answering like this, and then they just go down talking like that, and then she goes up talking like this. And it's, it feels more like a play, but I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, these are the boring people. Awesome. Like, I'm not bored, but I'm like, these are the normies. You always call them the normies. So I was just kind of like, this is great. Because then she doesn't really interact with Christopher Lee's character that much in the first scene. But I like her, and I like him. He's kind of like the contrast, because I was like watching him just going like, even the levels at which he speaks are going up and down. I mean, even just his cadence is like, you know, his delivery of the lines is more interesting, and he's got these dark incredible, just kind of shadows hanging on him. Even though I've never seen Christopher Lee so young and so handsome and suave. He's usually looming in movies that I've seen him in. So to see him just kind of like walk around a room and hand papers to someone, it was nice. He gets to do his Christopher Lee thing a little bit later, but I love that as Nan goes deeper into the film and starts to basically kind of like do some detective work, she seems to be more fascinated than afraid, and it doesn't seem like some kind of dumb blonde trope, like, lady, come on. Like, she's just kind of, it reminded me of Jean Tierney as Mrs. Muir in Ghost and Mrs. Muir. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a great movie. Okay, well, no spoilers. Okay, no spoilers. It's totally worth your time. Jean Tierney's amazing. But she's this kind of like proper English woman who ends up like buying a house. When she finds out it's haunted, she gets really excited about it. And I remember that happens really early in the movie. When it happened, I was just kind of like, I like you. Like, you're not scared at all. You're actually kind of fascinated. And I got a similar feeling with Nan when she would like walk up to the church and like knock on the door, and the Reverend answered, and he's a character. And he starts speaking to her like, like a harbinger, even though she met her first harbinger at the gas station. A very polite man, though.
But there's 2 harbingers in this movie.
There's a few. I mean, there's actually more than a few, because then there's the hitchhiker. Who's kind of a harbinger.
No, he's in on it all, though.
I mean, but as far as the progression of the story, I feel like
the one thing I just noticed, though, if we're going off of the cabin in the woods. The guy at the gas station has the setting, but the preacher is you must go, there is danger. Like, they split it between the 2 guys.
Yeah, but I love how she is like this, like very close to his face, and she's just kind of speaking to him softly and plainly but politely, and just kind of, she keeps seeing like the bygone beauty of what's surrounding her. She's like, the church must have been beautiful in its in its time. Do you know anything more about it? And she's just and then much later in the movie, even when she finally unlocks the trap door and she starts to venture down into the I don't know, basement, the catacombs,
chamber, the catacombs.
Yes. When she but I just love that she opens it up and just immediately starts pushing cobwebs out of the way, but doesn't do like a, like, I mean, I was going,
Dick gets the spider, like
right. But he goes down, But I love that she's just like, what is this? And she doesn't really panic until she knows there's something worth panicking about. But all of her exchanges with Pat, I fucking love. I love Pat.
Yeah.
And so I mean, Benisha Stevenson, big winner for me.
I responded to the fact that it doesn't seem to be just some report that she had to do. Like, she actually seemed to give a shit about this.
Yeah.
And not just because she needed to get a good report because her scholarship depends on it or whatever. Like, she gives a shit.
It's important to her. It's interesting to her.
I did reach not as bad as other movies where you watch enough signs where you're like, all right, lady, you need to leave. But it happens pretty quick. But I'm reading about how they take a personal possession of mine, and within like 30 seconds later, she's like, oh, by the way, I can't find my bracelet. Do you know where my bracelet is? I'd be like, oh shit. But I'm not like, bitch, you need to leave. I'm just like, fuck. But very quickly it becomes, and then they leave a bird and they do a thing, and then like, it eventually gets there. But I have more fun with her ignoring all the signs and continuing to be curious versus being of the movie and laughing at it all. Also, like, she doesn't know any of these people, but they're like, hey, we're hanging out in the lobby dancing. Oh, I'll come join you.
Oh, God.
Can I just say the dancing really, there's shit in this movie that gets under my skin. One of them is these like 4 or 5 couples that are dancing in this little like space in the lobby. And they're all dancing very close together and spinning. And it reminded me of the Haunted Mansion, where the couples are
Ooh.
pretty much just rotating,
Yeah.
and part of me thinks, well, why are they dancing so close? Well, it's because the set that they're in is really small, so they don't get to like broaden their carriage and do. But still, there's something eerie about how close they are, and pretty much all they do is just kind of spin
Yeah.
around each other. It's weird. It's just, I don't know, it got under my skin.
There's something that it didn't get under my skin, but it actually kind of gave me a laugh that I think follows right on the heels of that. While Nan's getting ready, she disrobes.
I was gonna, not to be a pervert, but I was going to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I was just shocked because I'm not complaining at all. I actually find it, kind of charming and kind of like setting a precedent for what horror movies would, carry on for decades that followed. But she's decked out in her undies. Like, she is not messing around. She's going full on, like,
you can call it undies.
yeah. I mean, it's gear. It's
Okay.
literally like a corset and garters, and it looks so fancy.
She's wearing a very like covering robe, and then she just undoes it to get dressed, and it is a corset that mashes things up, and it has like sheer like see-through material on the sides.
Yes.
and then the snaps and the garters, and I just like, it's shocking when the robe just comes off, and I just, and then she gets dressed, and I just kept thinking, like, that's what you're lounging in? This is what you wear under the robe? This is, and also she puts clothes over. I'm like, that's what you're wearing under your clothes right now? Because to me, like, at least in 2020, if I'm with a woman and she's wearing that, like, that already tells you what's about to, this is what the plans for the evening are.
She's DTF.
It's time to go to Fucktown. Yeah. Or the Bone Zone. Or, chances are, if you were with someone and this is what she's wearing, she's already made her decision what's happening for the night.
Yeah, exactly. It's a commitment. It is a commitment.
Asterisk, unless it's just like a woman who's like, no, I wear whatever the fuck I want to wear, and this is what I like feeling.
Of course.
Great, cool. But what I can't help but wonder is, back in 1960, is that just what underwear looked like?
No, I think it was male gazy.
Fuck! No, it's a choice for the movie. But
yeah,
I mean, I know women wore more than just what they wear now. Underneath, they had slips, and they had this and they had that. But that is a hell of an outfit when you're alone in a town.
Well, this also opens the door. Oh, well, before we move on, though, I also want to say, like, what she's wearing underneath looks more expensive than what she puts over it when she gets ready to go into the parlor and dance and spin. But I was just kind of like, wow, Madam Librarian, Marion. But
I'm curious what you're about to say next, because I have a thing too.
Well, because it's about, like, her, we're talking about her underwear and everything like that, and there's a huge parallel because you were talking about, like, what movies this could be paired with, and I just thought, when was this made? Because I started picking up the cues. Exactly.
Because bring up.
Yeah. But, yes, Psycho, totally. Because, okay, number one, just from what we were talking about, I remember seeing I think we've all seen the documentaries about Psycho, and sorry, spoilers for Psycho. If you haven't seen Psycho, folks, go watch it. Do yourself a favor and then come back. But she's wearing, I remember when they would talk about, like, how they would engineer something that could be screen friendly in 1960, because she couldn't just, Janet Leigh as Marion Crane in Psycho could not simply just wear a bra. They had to actually kind of make something that would, like, look like a bra, but also not reveal anything that maybe an actual bra would, like no cleavage and shit like that. Because you never saw women in their underwear the way it really looked. So it makes me think, okay, I don't think women really look that way. It feels male gazy. It feels like, it's also kind of fun. I think it does add, a little froth to to that particular sequence. But beyond that, I really wondered, like, okay, how long after Psycho was this movie made? And apparently it was actually in production before Psycho was. So I don't know if there was just something in the ether, or if the filmmaker, I wrote his name down somewhere, But if he had just read Robert Bloch's Psycho and decided, oh, I'll do it, but like with witches, like I had a dream about witches and I want to make that movie instead.
But he's like, there's something to this about like a blonde who goes to a hotel and then we kill her in the first act of a movie. And
yeah, I mean, okay.
Well, first of all,
yeah,
let's just run down through the list. Pretty blonde goes to a motel. Has a gratuitous underwear scene. Gets killed at or near the premises of the motel. Then we have 3 other characters, 2 male and a female, who are all inquiring in Act 2 about what happened to her. And even though the 2 males and the males, it's not the exact same relationships. If anything, what's the name of the girl at the bookstore? Pat's more the Arbogast, and then the other 2 guys fulfill the 2 roles. Right. But you still have that same structure. Yeah. Both came out in 1960. So
40 minutes in, almost to the minute in both cases, is when the blonde protagonist that we're led to believe, because I was shocked. I fell for it. I thought Nan was who was going to lead the progression of the action in this movie. And when she got killed, I was like, what? No. Oh my God. Like, and
they did a good job of making her likable. And she felt like the protagonist.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because there are so many movies that try to kind of pick up and do the psycho thing, what has been dubbed the psycho thing, where you introduce and then extricate your who's supposed to be your heroine. And I pick up on it quite often when I'm watching contemporary movies, but I think because this wasn't paying an homage to Psycho, it was just kind of doing its own thing.
She's got her
I
own
think that's why it worked.
Versus like, because Marion, I mean, we all see it now, but like Marion's also essentially a criminal. Really, once she sees the light, whereas this girl's kind of driven the whole time by a specific purpose, and you're expecting her to see it through, and then
yeah. But I even had more. Like I just wrote the execution scene is where the blonde heroine we've been following suddenly knows everything. Like she knows exactly like what it is in Psycho. In the case of Psycho, she knows exactly what we don't. If we're watching it for the first time and have never heard about it. But and then also finally the sibling of who was supposed to be the protagonist discovers that the female heavy who was set up to be we're supposed to fear and so we're supposed to believe she's the one who killed the character. In this case, she really did, but in Psycho, we're supposed to believe that it was her. She's discovered to be a corpse at the very end of the movie in both cases. Yeah, and I was just like, holy shit!
Scream.
Yeah,
and not just a corpse in a chair. Yeah, like, they approve. Right? Yeah.
Like you think she's alive, you start to go toward her, and then it's revealed that she's a in both cases. I thought that was amazing. So yeah, all that, and but one thing I appreciate, you bringing up that Marion's like a thief, and everything that Hitchcock does in Psycho to try and get us on her side is to try to put us in her situation and feel tension when she feels it. With Nan, I get pulled in because she's so damn friendly and because I do see her fearlessness as a value. When she picks up that fucking hitchhiker, something I would never do, the fact that he's a man, it's the middle of the night, the fog machine's going crazy. That's okay. Sidebar. I fucking love the fog machine in this movie because it makes it look like the town is on fire the entire movie.
So good.
It's great. It's so cool. I don't want them to crank it down. It looks great.
At like waist or rib level, it's like swirling. Oh, it's great.
Yes. And then okay, so but she's got this fearlessness when the hitchhiker comes in. Something that I love when Pat lets the hitchhiker in. She doesn't share that kind of fearlessness. I feel like Pat has picked up the moniker of like our protagonist in this movie. One thing that's a little different because she's got this suspicion, not because of Nan, but also because she's a different person. And I'm looking at Pat going, yeah, that's what I'd be doing. I didn't even say yes, and you let yourself in my car, and I'm like, don't want to rock the boat. I don't know if you might hurt me or if you've got anything on you. So I'm just going to drive and ask you if you've ever been to the town before. I've been living there for a few weeks, never seen you before. And I'm like, there you go, Pat. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
No, she's great too. Like the leads of this movie are awesome.
She has that incredible line. Her name's Betta St. John, the actress who plays Pat.
Yeah.
She has. I love that her reasoning when when she gets her book back. She says, "I'm not usually wrong about the people I lend my books to." There's something so personal and sweet about that it just. I really like this movie.
It's considering what you think its ambitions are.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly well thought out and well acted, and overall a far more solid production than you think you'd just find stumbling across Tubi from, like,
Yeah. And one more person who has to go mentioned. I wrote a bunch of lines. I'm just going to say them. But Patricia Jaisal as Elizabeth Selwyn.
Oh, her eyebrows, her whole face.
Her everything. I'm okay.
Oh, interesting, like the whole opening scene.
Oh my God. Okay. They do that reverse shot on her. That's one of those techniques things that I noticed where she's kind of writhing and everything. Fucking love her. But I also I loved her in that. I was just kind of like, okay, I like you because you're going for it, like, and I love
fire and she looks down and then like it.
Yeah. Yeah. But when she comes back as Mrs. What's her nom de plume? I don't remember. Oh, Mrs. Newless.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it's a reverse of Selwyn. Yeah.
It's not even a trick. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love, okay, just like, because she's another one who gives that kind of Christopher Lee worthy delivery. She's another one of those dark characters. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, you're the ones we're here to watch. Because she reminds me of like there's quite a bit of contention surrounding like the classic Disney villains and like how they were gay coded and stuff like that. And I am not going to argue against that. But I will say, well, as I was growing up, it's one thing that I loved about them. I loved the theatricality. I loved watching characters relish their wickedness and whatnot, and that's something she does. She's very, very theatrical and very broad. Nothing subtle about, but at the same time, not so over the top that you lose the moment. But she's just got these incredible lines like, "There is nothing underneath but earth," just with that incredible cadence.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
A treatise on devil worship in New England. Do you find this interesting? And just two more.
Go on.
Well, personally, I have never heard a clock strike more than 12. Now, how about joining the dancing? And I'm just like, oh! And then my favorite, to Lottie, the
That poor girl.
how would we describe her? She's the mutt of the film. She's the the runt of the litter, as it were.
The whipping boy, the whipping girl.
Yes, that's what she is. She's never looks happy. Always worried, always trying to signal to Nan.
She has the most sympathetic eyes and like her her whole face.
Yes.
Oh God, I just want to like help her. Like, oh God, great cast, great performance, because that face oozes sympathy. Go on.
That said, I watched Mrs. Newless abuse her, and I'm like, that's the role I'd want to play. I want to be Mrs. Newless. Because I get to say lines like, "Lottie, I have warned you too often about annoying our guests. If you disobey me again, I shall turn you out. And if I turn you out, there'll be no place for you anywhere. You do understand, Lottie, don't you?" I'm like, how? It fucking nailed it. Love you. Take my fucking money. I gotta look for this actress in other things because I hope she's in more horror films of this ilk. At least more roles of this ilk.
I stopped that line and rewound it and watched it again just to be like, I'm going to turn you out. You know what that means, don't you?
I'm just clapping over my head as she
like you know how you're mute and just like your life sucks. Imagine me throwing you. You know it's going to be bad for you, right?
Oh, it's gorgeous. Just finding all these peaks and valleys vocally too. I just fucking live for it.
And she plays, I mean, even though they're the same person, but they are operating on two different wavelengths. She plays both characters.
Yes.
Beautiful. And also just the way the movie opens with, because I'm kind of brainwashed to when we have a witch sequence. Like, oh, I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. Like, here's what the drama is, right? Like, these people are shitty. And very, very quickly, she's like, hey, Satan, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're a witch. Got it. Like, we're not fucking around. Yeah. This movie, right. It's, and not the way we've, over the years corrected and been like, well, no, technically witches, they're Wiccans. We don't worship the devil. We appreciate the earth. They're like, no, this is the 60s. these witches worship Satan, and we're not around. Right.
It's a great what if kind of tale. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't know, that it's innocent enough. I don't feel like it's making a big statement about like what those women went through. I feel like there's enough kind of like to combat. I mean, they even argue, don't they, that like, you know, those women weren't witches. Those were actual, like, you know, in the normie world, they start arguing that's why we don't believe in witches. Witches aren't real and everything. But we as the audience have seen, well, this coven means business. They're killing people, and you got to get that cross shadow on them.
Oh my God. First of all, this movie, it's already great for the reasons I've mentioned and that you and I have mentioned. To recap real quick, great acting, great atmosphere, cool compositions, I haven't even gone into how much I like the sets, but really great sets. But in the last 10 minutes of the movie, you literally have them leaving the underground sacrifice chamber, and they are now all in these robes, and they've got her laid out on this grave, and we're waiting for the clock to strike. And thank God the old man mentioned what to do, but
yeah.
the only way to defeat them is the shadow of the cross. So he pulls this cross out of the ground, and what does it do? It causes them to combust.
Yes, they burst into flames.
And they shoot something at them in production, because you see this little trail go. So there's some guy on set whose job is to like launch a little bottle rocket at these actors.
Across a wire or something, yeah, or maybe just pew, like an arrow.
But the fact the movie ends with like a graveyard full of Satanists in robes being lit on fire. It's also, I can't stand that Miss Sulis or Newlis, whatever.
Newlis, yes.
When she throws the knife at his boyfriend, I know it's a movie, but like she grabs it by the blade and throws it. And I'm like, ah! But then I just go, no, she's a witch. Like, there's a few moments in this movie like that I have my Mystery Science Theater commentary running. Very rarely does it happen in this movie, but when Dick is going through the catacombs and the wall door that slides up, that when Nan was in there made a noise, is then magically silent. I went, huh. And then he crosses, and then it makes a noise when it closes. And I was like, I can either laugh about how it's movie bullshit, or I can go, witches. Like,
like we didn't want you to we didn't want you to hear it this time.
Exactly.
The witches.
I feel the same way when she grabs the knife by the blade and she's like, I'm a witch. No blood, you know? Like,
there's also one thing
I've been sacrificing to Satan for hundreds of years. I don't believe anymore. Also, Christopher Lee gets shot and isn't affected. So I think she can grab a blade and throw it and not cut her hand.
Yeah, we don't really ever get like an explanation as to the extent of their powers or we just know eternal life, like youth, as long as they keep making sacrifices and shit like that.
Eternal life, but then when Christopher Lee gets shot, I'm like, oh, you're not kidding around with your eternal life. Holy crap.
I love that Dick just keeps firing because because I'm like, okay, 3 bullets in, it's like I better save my ammo because there might be a human around here somewhere who's in on it, and I might actually be able to hurt them. Maybe throw the gun. I don't know, because
my brain goes 4th bullet, I aim for the head, like.
Right. But one thing off of that scene, just back to Nan, like in the town, that I really appreciated when she first gets there. There are these abrupt sound cues that happen when she meets the Reverend and when she meets Pat, and even when she moves to join the party, where there's music playing. There's like an eerie soundtrack going on and everything like that. All of a sudden, a door opens to Nan, and it's silent. And it happens when she goes to the Reverend, and he opens the door, and there he is, and all of a sudden it's like no more music, silence, and it's used 3 times, and it never loses its impact for me. I'm always just kind of like, good for you, movie. Like, I am not waiting for this to happen. You keep catching me off guard, just unsettling me enough to make me go like, oh man, she's in danger. Like, the music is, even if it's eerie music, it's to give you a comfort. And when it's immediately taken away, it's like, who short-sheeted my bed? Jesus Christ. I really appreciate it.
It's a real standout for me. There's elements to this that I really caught on to it in the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie. And again, I'm terrible with names as I get older, but the lady who's inherited the bookstore. You've already given me her
Pat.
name.
Pat.
Yeah, Pat realizes like, hey, there's a bird in my thing. Oh no, there's the thing on the door. Like it's time to go. And the music's and it's like I'm gonna hustle my grandfather to the car, and it's time to go music. And it's like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's like
Oh yeah.
it's like a woodwind instrument, and I'm like, this is so 60s. It reminds me of Batman running with the bomb.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
Yeah. There's a certain flavor to this movie that also the fact that first of all, I love the town set. You can tell that it's inside a soundstage, but a big soundstage because they built the facades of like 3 or 4 these 2 corners
Yeah.
of the town, and the other corner is a chunk of a graveyard. You never see the sky, but like I'm not saying this as a bad thing. It's a great interior soundstage that's supposed to be an exterior. It's got all the atmosphere. I adore the was it Whitehall? Whitewood?
Oh, Whitewood.
The Whitewood set, love it. I want to walk through it like on a fucking haunt.
Oh yeah.
I wish it still
Beautiful.
existed. I want to go to it. The second you pull into it, I'm like, fog, decrepit church, creepy motel. There's the graveyard. There's creepy monks, hoods. Oh god, it's great. No, but before we get to Whitewood, I love Christopher Lee's like study, and then I think it's Dick's house. They're all like the standard 3-wall kind of sets. You saw lots of cons, but also movies. We never see the 4th wall. And I don't know. I respond to that flavor, and also it breaks up. So when we get to Whitewood, it feels a little different. But I don't know, something about those. I like the restriction that a 3-walled set gives me.
I do too. It's comforting. Well, also, I mean, maybe because so much good, unsettling television was released in the 50s and 60s, and they kind of like shows like Twilight Zone, Night Gallery. I'm missing one. What am I missing? But anyway, those kinds of shows really kind of set the bar with like creepy on a budget, or at least unsettling on a budget. And I feel like that's something this movie picks up picks up on as far as legacy of that feel, because it you know what, now that I think about it, it feels like a really that's of course that's what I was thinking about. It feels like a really good episode of Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, or Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Right. And I think I have to go back and read the IMDb trivia, but I think I read that this was originally written as like a pilot or a pitch for a TV show.
Right. Yes. And that
Boris Karloff.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oddly enough. Yeah. I mean, not odd. I mean, it makes sense.
This is a British production. It was like it was they were trying to compete with Hammer, and they got Christopher Lee to be in it.
Yeah. I mission accomplished. I mean, I also, one thing that I love about Christopher Lee though is how seeing him in a cape sacrificing a bird in that one scene in his study, I was less surprised seeing that than I was watching him in his introduction scene where he was a professor at a college, and he was just sending this nice young lady out, on an errand because he believed in witches. And I just kind of thought, am I supposed to like you? Am I supposed to just be like, what a sexy man? But now I'm just kind of like, there he is in a cape sacrificing a bird. I get this.
Now that we know, Actually, what I love about that scene is that he's in the cape.
Yes.
And he's sacrificing the bird. And then it's there's a knock at his door. He's like, ah. But what I love is that he pushes you don't see the button, but he reaches around the corner, pushes a button. And there's this little gargoyle mouth sculpted next to him, and it's a fountain and water, and he washes his hands. And I love in the middle of it's behind a curtain, but I love in the middle of this normal study room, pull back the curtain, and my little sink is a gargoyle mouth. And
I love that too.
And then the rest of the room is total 1960s bland 3-walled set. Oh, I love it.
Another thing that I thought was another thing that I thought was hilarious in around this period in the film, that's not like Psycho. Nan is gone a month. before they start looking for her.
Yeah, like they're at a party and like we're supposed to. She's gonna go investigate.
She's been gone about 4 weeks.
But we agreed to meet at this party 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But then, like, at one point when he's speaking, I think it's, I can't remember who reveals it, but maybe it's when, by the time Dick gets to Whitewood and he's speaking to the Reverend, I think that's when he says she's been gone a month, and I'm just kind of like, and it took you that long to get here, great brother. But one thing that I did appreciate also about Reverend Russell is similar thing happened. I didn't think ever that Nan was bad. I just thought she was kind of like answering in kind to whoever she was working with and did it incredibly. I did think Dick was whatever, but then I saw him working with the Reverend, and all of a sudden he's asking questions like they're real questions and not like they're lines. That old-timey kind of cadence like this is all of a sudden gone, and he's just asking questions like this. That might have been his most naturalistic and his best American accent. Like the entire movie is just like a shot of like the Reverend and a shot of Dick like in the background, just kind of again, looking at him quizzically.
The Reverend closer in the foreground, Dick more in the midground. Like again, they don't do a lot of chest up, two people just talking to each other scene.
Oh yeah, really making use of like all of the opportunities they have, exploring possibilities as filmmakers and everything, and you feel it. I'm not even conscious of probably half the things that I saw. The only reason I can comment like this is because I've revisited it. I saw it without riff tracks twice and saw with riff tracks once. And even then I was like kind of actually watching the riff tracks cut. I like the movie enough that I was actually, and I'm not familiar enough with it, that there were times I was actually trying to like listen over the tracks and just watch the movie. So I may have to revisit that one again too, but later in time.
I think it's fun that you mentioned, you're talking about the Dick and the Reverend scene, because
yeah,
earlier in the movie, one of the things that one of my little notes here wrote down was, especially in the first maybe 20 minutes or so,
yeah,
is how some, like especially Dick, there's a lot of what I consider that like stiff British acting. But also, the only time the movie gets a little what I consider bad, because a lot of the writing is so good, but it gets a little bad when he's like talking. I think he's talking Christopher Lee. He's like, he goes, he actually does the expositional thing of, I'm a scientist. I believe this. I don't know, witchcraft is that, but he's like, I'm a scientist. And I'm like, and it's the only part of the movie that I like ironically, because I like the rest of this movie rather unironically, but I'm a scientist and I believe that this is stuff, and witchcraft, that's a bunch of hooey. And like, it's even delivered kind of like this.
There's something that I like ironically. Professor Driscoll kept his name. Like Elizabeth Selwyn did her inverted name and did everything to cover it up and just be Mrs. Newless, but he's full on Alan Driscoll on his tombstone. It shouldn't. The only way it would have been like I don't know about campier, but the only way it would have been, kind of like more tongue-in-cheek is if it would have said Professor Alan Driscoll. Because I'm like, that's his name, and he just kept it, so he wasn't worried about like hiding his identity. Maybe because he's so far from the town, I don't know.
And the fact that and they say they do this every year. Now, whether it's him who sends the person every year is a different story, because they talk about all these people are coming to the town for this, so maybe every year someone else is responsible. Otherwise, you're going to start tracking and tracing the same occurrences over and over every year. But the fact that all it takes is one little screw up, or one little person go to that town, see the tombstone, and go back, go, hey, wait a minute, I saw your name. I mean, this is a movie where if you really scrutinize their operation, it all falls apart.
Don't ruin Candlemas for me.
No, I'm not going to. But I mean, all it takes is the grandmother to die, and like, well, I'm not from here, but now I'm going to take over the bookstore and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean,
but a few other things still hold up though. Like I'm wondering, like there's a priest that's been living there this whole time.
Yes.
But then you realize, like, oh, he's blind, so he can't. And also, they blinded him with Satan.
Yeah.
So like, it's in their best interest to keep this guy there, like at least so he can't see anything. I don't know why they never
can't speak to anybody. Yeah.
But yeah, like he can never witness. He has a feeling something evil is going on, but he's not witnessing people in monk robes,
right?
Twice a year performing these sacrifices. But I like.
And they must have.
He's a good harbinger and a likable enough old man too.
Yeah, I thought he was great. But I also loved, oh God, because he and Pat, like for me to be rooting for people like, you know, like this late in the movie, just kind of like really with them. I love the fact that like he knows exactly what to tell her, like what to look for. So she looks for it. She finds the bird. She opens the door and sees the whatever kind of bark is there. We got a branch or something that's there, and then he just tells her to like go to the car and everything. And this was something I really appreciated. It seems rather progressive for its time. I remember when I saw Wes Craven's They. Still don't know what Wes Craven had to do with that movie because he didn't direct it. He didn't write it. I guess he produced it. Yeah. But it's called Wes Craven's They, but his name is nowhere in the credits. Anyway, in this movie, there's a point where the girl, the main protagonist, is driving a car. I remember seeing it in the theater. Her car stops because these things can only gateways through the dark and everything like that. So her car stops and she's out in the middle of nowhere, so it's dark. She gets out of the car and she pops the hood and holds a flashlight and looks at the car like a lost lamb or a little lost girl. And I remember there was a guy sitting down in the front row who just busted out laughing when she held the flashlight timidly looking at the motor, because the way she did it was like somebody who had no idea how to work within a car. You know, like she didn't know, like you don't know what to look for. You're not going to find out what the problem is. You're just kind of standing like, it stopped. Now Pat in this movie gets to the car, starts it to like, while, you know, grandfather is like making his way to the threshold, and she can't start it. So she gets out, pops the hood, and I was looking at her going like, there's something in her body language. I'm just like, you're a pro. You know what to look for. And the only line they give her is like, you know, like they wrecked the car or something like that. But she says it with such authority and such confidence that I'm just kind of like, yeah, you know, yeah, of course they did. You know that. And it's not just because it won't start. You're looking at it, you're just like, fuck, that's not where that's supposed to be, or something's missing. And I'm just like, I like that. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot to me.
Sure. that whole, again, it's when the Batman music kicks in, but I was just realizing how there tends to be a certain level of pacing in some older films where information is dolloped, and I was surprised how like this is how movies now are done. Like that's like Scream and so many movies now are like, oh, there's a thing, we gotta go, we get in the car. No, what happened? Oh my gosh. And I'm like, for 1960, this shit's fucking moving. And they're reacting in the moment at the right pace. It's great.
Yeah.
It's funny that this movie, I found it because of a list of movies, if you like Wicker Man, because to me it has way more to do with Psycho than it does Wicker
Me too.
Man. I do see the connection though. Like if you're, I mean, but they are but merely checklist connections. Like, oh, it's Christopher Lee. It's outsider coming into a town that's got like its own kind of thing. There's some human sacrifice going on. Like, I get it, but the vibe-wise, there's structurally way more to compare to Psycho with witches than
I felt it.
And there's another part of the movie that this is random, but what really, I'll say it creeped me out. And sometimes the way jump scares can just kind of, maybe a good jump scare makes you, they did this great thing. We've already gone to the town once with Nan. So the rule of 3 is out because technically it's the rule of 4. But when it comes to investigating Nan, first we see, I'm always going to forget her fucking name. Don't tell me, Pat.
Do you know why you forget it? Because she doesn't get introduced with that name until maybe like a third of the film is left.
I remember, like, there is a very pointedly like Dick, like it's like said.
Yes. No, I thought she met. I was looking for her name again. I was like, oh, I have to go back and watch. I guess I'm too charmed watching her exchange with Nan that and I know Nan introduces herself because she says Nan Barlow, and I go, and maybe that's why I don't remember Pat's name, because I was going, but she doesn't even call herself Miss Russell or anything like that after Reverend Russell, you know, her grandfather. She doesn't have a name until she introduces herself to, I believe, Dick about 2/3 into the movie. And then he even calls her Patricia at one point before her grandfather does. And I'm just kind of like, well, that's presumptuous to think her name is Patricia. What if it isn't? But then it turns out it is. Anyway. Small point, but that's why you don't remember it, because it's featured very little in the movie.
Although, side tangent, one thing I like about her too is it's not. She she gets the bracelet and she figures out that like something's amiss, and like I love that she makes the effort to leave the town to find where Dan's from. We're talking about two proactive heroines, but doesn't even need to. Just she's going.
She's a good person.
She fucking wants to. Like she should do this. And I just
she's something suspicious because she didn't seem like the type of person who'd borrow a book and not return it, and
that's
and
weird.
there's
and
there's lots of strange things going on in this town too.
And this mutant handed me a thing, and it's not adding up. It's not adding up. My grandfather says stuff, so instead of leaving, she makes a choice to keep going. So I respect that. Anyway, no, the only Pat drives into town, and we see the fog leading to the fork in the road. Dick, a few scenes later, drives into town, gets to the fork in the road. So if this is our rule of three, when Bill's driving and we're expecting to see the fork in the road, instead through the fog we see fucking whatever the fuck her name is, because I'm terrible with names, but the witch. She's like it's just a simple kind of dissolve, like, and it's within the windshield frame, and like zooms in on her. But that's some creepy shit. Like I was unsettled by it enough that it worked as a scare for me. And the groundwork was laid by the two previous drives up to the fork in the road. Yeah, it just really worked for me. Like besides being a fun movie as far as atmosphere and direction goes, there are a couple effective spooky moments in this, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to own it. It's got two Region A. We're in the United States, folks, but it's got two Region A friendly Blu-ray releases that I haven't decided because I can't find. At first I couldn't find adequate reviews for them because they're not on Blu-ray.com or anything like they're there, but there's no reviews for them. But there was one page that reviewed the both of them, and I believe it was an Arrow release. I can't remember if it was Arrow, but I know it was Region B coded only.
There's an Arrow release in Europe that we don't have. That's what I went down the same rabbit hole. There's two releases for Region A. The first one has more bonus features, but is frowned upon by some because the image seems to be cropped in a bit.
Right.
The transfer isn't supposed to be that great. Whereas the second release, the transfer is much better. It looks more like the way it should, but it has far less bonus features. So I'm still torn as to which one to get. I mean, obviously the cinephile in me says, well, get the one where the movie looks right.
Right.
So I want the second American release. But
I'd also like to really know, maybe I'll just buy both of them, because I'd also like to really know more and more about this movie, because I like it that much.
Yeah, I liked it enough that I saw it once, and one of my first things I did was I got to text Eddie because I really responded to this, and it's so you're 40 and I'm about to turn 40.
I'm 41.
41, that's right. Yeah, I got you're always a year ahead of me, and no. So you just turned 41. I'm about to turn 4D. One of the interesting things about, well, not interesting. One of the shitty things about life is you spend your teens and your 20s and you get exposed to more and more movies, and you start getting older, and you start to feel like, well, all the good movies I've either seen or I know about. It's hard. I mean, do you remember like being in your teens the first time you discovered like Halloween, or then being in your 20s or your 30s the first time you discover Sleepaway Camp, or you discover fucking like Suspiria, like that time allows you to find all the things, but then there reaches a point where you think you're over the hill with new experiences. And I did not expect at this point, not like I'm old, but I'm also not young, and I don't expect to find a movie that isn't something I already know of but haven't seen, but that I've truly never heard of.
Right.
It comes along and surprises you.
Yeah.
And this was such a great experience to discover it. I very rarely discover anything anymore. And to discover something that I not just enjoyed but loved enough to buy.
It's a gem. I'm really happy that you recommended it to me, because I had never heard of it before either. And I mean, you know me, I'm a psycho head. Like it's my jam. And
it doesn't feel like a ripoff. It just feels like something you can enjoy along with. And because
it was just one thing, as I was watching, I was just kind of like, huh. And then I did my own little research. Yeah. And I'm really happy that it isn't a ripoff, that it actually began production before Hitchcock ever set foot on a set, for Psycho, before probably, it even went into pre-production. But
yeah, I remember looking this up, and I remember seeing it'd be credited as 1960, but then maybe it was delayed in the US, but it'd be like 1961. And then I think one listing had it at 1959. Some older movies are weird like that, but clearly it wasn't like in any way cashing in on Psycho.
No. It just kind of played a similar tune, and I appreciated that. It's one more jewel in the crown now. So.
And it introduced me to Benicia?
Yeah. I'd say Venetia, but maybe Venetia. That sounds very,
doesn't it?
Early 20th century. Yeah.
I mean, literally within like 2 scenes, I'm like, I can't take my eyes off her. She's got something.
Yeah. She's a star.
Yeah, married to Russ Tamblyn for a year.
Oh wow.
That's. I mean, at the second, I just did a Google search and I started looking at images of her, and then there's a photo of her with her and Elvis, and I'm like, oh,
of course.
There's a lot of sexiness happening in one photo. These are two very pretty people in a photo right now. And then,
oh my God.
Then I came across her and Russ Tamblyn, and it led to just this rabbit hole. And obviously, they didn't. Right. But I love Russ Tamblyn, so that happened. And
me too. Yes.
Great. This movie's great. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Fuck, I love it.
See it, folks. Yeah. Well, hopefully you've already seen it. Hopefully you listened to us. And you're welcome.
Yeah. So until next time. And that is a good recommendation for. We're in October now, so there's your Halloween recommendation for something new.
Yeah.
It's Tubi for free.
TubiTV.com.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, always.
Until next time.